I wish I could say it's nice to be here. It is nice, of course, and I really wanted to meet all of Rohini's friends, and many of whom are my friends. Anyway, I have given, that light off would be better. I have addressed a few different audiences already about Rohini, and interestingly, just a week ago on the Women's Day function of my institute, a group of mainly biologists wanted to hear about her life, and actually none of them had met her, and no one really knew her. They just knew of her, and so I told them some very basic facts about her, both from personal recollection and also her CV, so to speak. But here I think people know her work and her achievements very well, so it will be a little more personal. So let me start with this photo, which I found yesterday. It's not probably, no, I don't think we've seen this one. It's a very nice one. I want to start with a brief timeline of last year, which was her last year of life. And the thing is, it started very well, and I think for her at least half the year was really good. And then things indeed started to go downhill medically. But I think it's nice to remember that pretty much until a few months before the end, she was doing pretty well and very happy. And I think the first picture, this one many people might not have seen, is that she won this enormous motorcycle in some sort of lottery associated to something she bought, I think, and I don't know if anyone here knows the more detailed story. She bought something, and there was some lottery where you put your name in, and then she won the motorcycle. She was immensely pleased with it. She never rode it, but she promptly sent me this photograph on WhatsApp. And then her plan was to give it to her niece, who lives, I think, in Delhi, but eventually it was too complicated to ship, so I think she decided to sell it and then maybe buy another one for somebody. So, but anyway, she was mighty pleased and proud and posed with it, though I don't know if she actually sat on it. Okay, here is a dinner. I think this caption is wrong. Here is a dinner. This was in February, 23rd February. Sorry for the caption. I gave a talk here in this room, and of course she wasn't here. Almost every time I visited here, she was flying around somewhere, but she managed to land the very next day or something. Or she was here the previous day and she had to fly out that day. But anyway, Chanda Jog, who you see in the middle, and me and her went out for dinner, and we were all in high spirits. This is a Stony Brook old friends gang, and you'll hear more about us a little later. This is a picture she sent me from 27th March at a family function with her 3 sisters. So the 4 sisters you see seated over there. She's obviously the third one from the left among the seated people, and then there are 4, I think they are all nieces. 2 of them I know, 2 of them I don't think I know. But you can see that everyone's super dressed up and everyone is super happy. So she really did have a good time. She, of course, loved being with her family, which was based in Pune. And since I live in Pune, it was sometimes we were able to meet there. Okay. In May, she went to Europe. This was to be her last international trip, and she really was looking forward to it. There was a bit of anxiety among her friends here, like should she go, should she not go? But of course, for Rohini, anyone else's anxiety was no problem. She was like, I'm going, that's the end of the discussion. And she went, and she told us how well Genevieve and others looked after her. And here is the picture. You might have already seen it in Genevieve's talk. And so she returned on the 16th, and then on the 20th, she was the chief guest at the convocation of IISER Kolkata, and the whole video is up. You can watch it. It was a very nice talk. In fact, she took the opportunity to speak about gender equity and what it means to a very large audience that I'm sure she influenced in some way, namely the graduating class of IISER Kolkata, which would be at least 300 or something, or 200, and then other people who were attending. But she doesn't look that well in this video, although her voice is strong as ever, and things were not going very well after that. Nevertheless, she came back, and then on 23rd, here in Bangalore, me and her and a friend of mine went to lunch at Just Be, which Fauzi mentioned yesterday, which is a vegan restaurant. She selected it. She showed up alone. We had a grand time. After it, she was like, how did we forget to take a selfie at lunch? So we posed outside the restaurant. And as you see, she was in great spirits. But 3 weeks later, roughly, she was admitted to hospital in Bangalore. On 29th, she was discharged. And on 3rd August, she traveled to Pune with 4 family members, 2 sisters, a nephew, and Niranjan. And as it was considered a bit dicey to fly her in that condition, but this was her sisters are doctors. They flew from Pune, and I think they just arranged everything. And I'm sure it wasn't a chartered plane, but short of that, I'm sure they had everything, the oxygen and everything. She reached safely. I got messages when she reached. Just a week later, she messages me as if nothing's happened. This is on WhatsApp, saying my sister Kalpana, who's a doctor, one of the people who brought her to Pune. My sister Kalpana got an award. Here's the picture. She shared the picture. She said, look, she's the only woman on the stage. All the others are men. So she was mentally back. She was always mentally back in business, wherever she was, and even in this somewhat critical condition. So I kept asking when I can visit. I said, it's a medical thing, so they have to, your sisters have to agree, otherwise I'm not going to come and disturb you. She was also not allowed to even see relatives or anyone. So on 17th, she says, your visit is approved. That's my visit from my house to her house, half an hour drive in Pune. But I had flu, and so obviously I was not going to go and see sick Rohini while I had flu. So I said, no, cannot come. But on 31st August, I did manage to visit her at her sister Kalpana's home. And she was thin and she was resting, but she was cheerful and optimistic, and we talked non-stop for an hour. And when I left, she sent this WhatsApp, good you could visit. This is a little unusual for Rohini. I mean, she was always happy to have people visit, but she did not tend to send these sentimental WhatsApps. And somewhere I felt that she was very worried for her future and just was happy to see her old friends. So I wrote to the Green is Me. I said, enjoyed it very much. We'll come again soon. And on 6th September, she visited her cardiologist, who said, look, the heart is sort of reasonably okay. That was not the main problem she was having, but it could have added to her problems. And so the cardiologist said, heart is okay. She was very happy. She sent me a message. I said, great. Then she writes this. She says, I thought I sent it to you already, but realized I had not. This message I think a lot of people have got from Rohini, saying, I thought I mailed you something, but I realized I had not. Then she sends this one a few hours later. I kept on wondering why I did not receive a response. Then I realized sending a message was the first requirement for getting an answer. Everybody who knows Rohini knows that she sends messages like this all the time, ironic about herself. And I wrote, indeed, very lucid observation. Then 22nd September, I visited her again, and this was to be our last meeting. This time I took some bread which I had baked. She was on a very restricted diet, but bread was one thing she could eat, and whole wheat bread she liked. So I baked her a loaf, and after I left, she wrote thanks for the bread, but even more importantly for the visit. I wrote my pleasure both, and then 2 days later, she wrote the bread was delicious. Actually, there was no bread knife in the house. She was staying with a different sister who didn't have a bread knife. Then there are more messages about how they got hold of a knife. But eventually they did, and she ate the bread. And well, that was 22nd September. She passed away on 25th October. As far as I was concerned, completely unexpected, though expected. I mean, every time I visited her, I could see that the situation is not going well, despite her enthusiasm. I was lucky that I could go for the funeral, and I think I was the only academic there. Everyone else were relatives. But anyway, and that is sort of that. I started this talk with all this because I didn't want to end it with all this. So now I will go back in time by 50 years to 1976. This is the group photo of the Stony Brook Physics Department in 1976. I joined in 1977. I think group photos were taken usually in spring because it was nice and green. And so it would have been April or May. And or even May or June. And I would have joined in September of the previous year. So of course here is Rohini standing right in front. I'm somewhere in that corner. I can't see now, but there I am, that one is me. Anyway, but since you can't see this very clearly, here's a blow up, and that's Rohini in 1976. She's not wearing a sari in this photo, but she is. Now I'll show you the group photo of the following year. This is the group photo of the following year, and here she is wearing a sari, but she's not right in front. I don't know if you can spot her, but this photo I missed for some reason, and also I don't know why it's in black and white, but anyway, here is the blow up, and there she is, and I believe from that she's wearing, I think that's top of a sari, but you can't tell more from this photo. So for some reason this year she was a little at the back from the first row. And then that's 1978. This is 1979. She's back in front over there. And here she is. So that's her in Stony Brook. She had joined in 1974. So this was her last year, so I have the next year's picture and 1980 I think, and she's not there obviously because she had graduated and come back to India. Okay, so I first met her in August 1976 when I joined as a PhD student. Chanda Jog, who is from this department here, and I joined in the same batch, and also Alok Jain. And on day one, Chanda and I, at least, I don't remember if Alok was with us, we took a map and we tried to find the physics department. And when we found the department, we walked in and there was Rohini sitting on a bench with a friend outside the mailroom in the lobby of the department. It was the first day of classes of the fall term. And so obviously we introduced ourselves to her. And then, so we met for the first time. She was very hospitable and friendly. And then she extended what I call the famous dinner invitation. So she was cooking in the hostel with Surya, another student, another woman student, and we in that hostel we used to often cook in groups. There were common kitchens, and so Chanda and I went for this dinner, and the dinner had a spicy tomato curry, which had loads of ginger powder and also an extra double dose of cayenne pepper powder. So they were functioning on the the spices they could buy there, and it nearly killed me. And so for years after that, every time this dinner would come up, especially in conferences or meetings like this, she would say, "But I invited you for dinner," and I would say, "Yes, and you tried to kill us both." And then she had that smile. It's like half the smile was like, "I wish I had killed you both," and other half was, "Okay, I know you're making fun of me, but we are friends, right?" So it was always like that. You could make fun of Rohini up to a point. She did get annoyed if she felt she was being ridiculed. But you could make fun of her if she believed that you are actually her friend. And then a few weeks later, I met her at there was some function going on, maybe some concert or something in open air, some open air party. They had these all the time in September. And I said, "I think I'm not going to pass the qualifying exams, which I had to take in a few months." And she said, "Why won't you pass? You'll pass with distinction." And it just struck me that this kind of answer, it was not forthcoming from other Indian students there. Like, we used to obviously talk to the Indian students. And for the young people, please remember that 1976 is not like 2025. There was no internet, we had no information, we knew nothing, we were in a strange place, we had not known what to expect. And not everyone was being very nice to us. I mean, people were reasonably nice. America is a friendly country as a whole, even today. But people could be intimidating. And so we looked to the Indians, and one of the Indians first I talked to an American in the hostel, and I said, "I wonder if I'll pass my qualifying exams." And he says, "Yeah, what makes you think you will?" So that left me completely squashed. Then I talked to one of the senior Indian students, who I won't name, but who didn't come back and settle in India. And he also was very discouraging. And so she was the one who said, no, you'll get a distinction. What's your problem? Stop worrying. And that was a very correct attitude, and I was grateful to her forever after for that. Now, in those years, 76 to 79, I don't think I interacted with her all that much. We were 3 years junior, remember? So we didn't have that many points of interaction. We were also in different fields of particle physics and different, we just didn't we had often the social interactions at Diwali function and so on. But then she went to India, back to India to take a postdoc position at TIFR. And a remarkable thing happened. At that time, we didn't know if it was a kind of existence proof. Could one go back to India and keep doing science? It was actually an unanswered question at that time. We didn't know anyone who was actually doing physics in India because TIFR was a very closely guarded secret, and even we who lived in Bombay couldn't go there, or they never answered any letters. There was just no contact. And so she writes a paper from TIFR, and it arrives on the what was it called then? Not Spires, the Slack preprint list. And we were like, Rohini has a paper from TIFR, it can be done. And it was, I think, SU2 left cross SU2 right something in the title, vaguely I remember. You check if there's a paper of hers on left-right symmetric models, probably. And it was really, for us, for me, it was like, okay, I can go back when I want. And it's maybe not a coincidence. Many of us actually just came back. Stony Brook is probably the largest represented university in among Indian faculty in high energy physics. Ashok Sen, Sumati Rao, Nilima Gupte, Chanda Jog here. There are so many names I can't, if I had listed, Rohini, of course, Mustansir Barma. It's just an endless list. Most of whom are junior, except for Mustansir, all of whom are junior to her. Okay. Now in '84, I joined TIFR as a postdoc, and she was still there. She wasn't still there. She had by then joined Bombay University, but she was physically there in the sense she was at TIFR when I went. And she was, I learned that she was commuting. What commuting meant is that she would teach at Bombay University, where she had a permanent job, paying her a salary, giving her accommodation. And then she would get on a local train in Bombay and commute all the way to TIFR and then do research with various people in TIFR. I'm sure all of you know who the people were. I think there was KVL Sarma, Probir Roy, DP Roy. She interacted with all of them and probably with postdocs or younger people as well. And so this was her period of commuting, and it was very stressful, but she tried not to show it. It's tiring, first of all. Secondly, TIFR did allow her, but I think they should have been much more graceful about it. There is an incident when I actually asked Professor Jha if we could let her have a cubicle in the student cubicles, just to keep her things, because daily she would come to my office and keep her bag, because she didn't have any place in TIFR that she could keep anything. And I got yelled at for asking this. Somehow TIFR had a very standoffish attitude in those days. I hope it doesn't anymore. Anyway, since then I've spent 28 years there, and I'm a little more fond of it now. But we saw it as as quite unfair and arbitrary, that someone who was writing papers, co-authoring, coming there, but somehow she was tolerated, but it didn't go much further than that. Anyway, on the good side, I had dinner with her often, because we lived there on campus, and she would often be there for dinner and then go back, or sometimes even stay over with people. But it was hectic, and she didn't really complain. You could see that she was hassled, but she didn't complain. The staying over also, there was a weird thing in TIFR that you're not supposed to keep people staying over. In the hostel, of course, it wasn't even allowed probably. But yeah, and so people had this thing that, why does she come and stay over? And somehow there was this thing that she is using TIFR, whereas in retrospect, it's very clear to me that TIFR was using her, because TIFR got a lot out of her. Otherwise, they could have just said, don't come if that's what they wanted. It's not how it happened. So it's quite unfortunate. And I have no doubt that sexism was a very, very significant part of it. And I think it also started to form her attitude to this problem. Okay. Many years later, many years later, we co-authored a popular article. The only thing we have written together is this article in Resonance magazine, which is for high school and college students, called Nobel for a Minus Sign, which was obviously the Nobel Prize review of the Nobel Prize for Asymptotic Freedom. And we had fun writing this. This is not going to be a long talk, so I'm just going through brief, a few key events. We often interfaced on committee work, and we came to trust each other for these qualities of balance. At least I found in her the quality of balance and breadth. She could support somebody in a committee, but she would not make the mistake of opposing somebody else or being crude about it, or nor did it come out that she was supporting this person because she was going to benefit from that person getting a job or an award. It was more often thinking about her own sincere beliefs about the subject. Could be wrong, could be disputed, but I think she was very sincere about that. And breadth, well, we already saw in Veronica's talk that she was inspired by an ADS CFT calculation, but more generally, she was the easiest of all phenomenologists I knew to talk across the divide, formal theory phenomenology divide. Possibly she thought somewhat similarly about me, and if so, I'm happy. She would certainly consult me on many little things, like when Randall Sundaram happened, she just called me and she was like, what is Randall Sundaram scenario? And so I could tell her that. And sometimes there would be these can you mails, and sometimes there would be phone calls or WhatsApps where she was about to enter a committee room in Delhi and she needed 2 lines written about a person's lifetime achievement and sent to her in the next 5, so anytime in the next 5 minutes kind of thing. And one had to just do it, obviously. And then, of course, she would always be profusely thankful later. And thank you, this really helped. I made the point in the committee. They listened, they were receptive. So it was always like that. From 2000 or 2001, she started advocacy for women in science. There were other women that they joined hands on this. Again, many from Stony Brook, Sumati Rao, Nilima Gupte, and there were others. But she certainly was quite strong-willed about it. She got rebuffed time and again. Over the years, I discovered to my surprise, pleasant surprise, that by maybe the 2010s, people had cut down on rebuffing her and were now, the system was, instead of blocking her attempts, was trying to sidestep them, which is what it's still doing actually. So, she produced copious documents and data and this and that. Everything was dutifully put on a website and then forgotten as soon as it could be forgotten. She tried to introduce ideas like this Athena Swan initiative, which is a British initiative where universities get a specific chunk of funding if they manage to meet the gender diversity target. It's kind of like a carrot rather than a stick, and she liked that idea, but I don't think anyone in India was having it, and that's sort of that. Anyway, so I think that's all I really wanted to say about her. I mean, it's difficult to talk about our friendship because it was really close. For the last 10 or 12 years, we were on again, off again writing a book, textbook. It's partly done. I'm hoping to complete it with Srirup, who is here. We had already drafted him onto this a year ago, so she knew about that. And if it does come to fruition, she'll be a posthumous author. So the press has already agreed to that part. Now, of course, no talk in a conference should end without the last word being from Rohini herself. So 4 years ago in 2021, I was asked to interview her for an article about her scientific work. I'm ashamed to say I have the entire recording. I never finished writing it up, and someday, maybe this year, I will do so. But I have that clip, the whole video, and I took a short clip, and it's about the work that Manuel talked about, the resolved photon, as I understand, I think. You can see me, it was done over Zoom. This was in height of COVID, 2021, and you can see me nodding like an idiot in between. It's just 2-minute clip, but what I want to show it for is, apart from all the people who obviously knew her, the young people here, I think there is a lesson which I will state on her behalf, which I think she would have agreed with. She's proud of the work. She's not showing off about the work. She's not embarrassed by the work. She's not saying, I didn't do anything. She's not saying, I did everything. She's just happy about her work. That's an attitude which I think we in India would do well to try and calibrate. We don't want to be overly boastful. We don't want to be overly shy and embarrassed to project our work. There is a middle ground, and I think Rohini just hit it absolutely perfectly, and without knowing in a way that she was doing so, because she just loved the work. It was, for her, it was just about the work. She didn't have another way to present it more forcefully or less forcefully. But I have shown this to other, like last week in the Women in Science on Women's Day meeting, and I think people liked the kind of attitude she showed. And so here she is. I hope the sound works. Let's see. That is a bit of a, yes, tell me. Oh, okay. Shall I start? Oops. Oops, that was not good.
I can tell you that the work I consider very good because it actually led to a formulation of a lot of experimental studies at a variety of colliders to study it in a variety of ways. And it opened up completely a new door. As it happened, the second paper that I was going to tell you, since you said this was such a light, but the derivative work of that was we were able to sort of say that in high energy dissociative colliders, these effects will cause backgrounds which nobody had ever thought. In a dissociative colliders, that they were under planning at that. So that also had a big impact because it had impact on telling people that you need to reduce the emission of electrons, photons, when bunches of electrons and positrons collide, because otherwise these high energy photons will mess up your nice collider conditions.
Again, by giving quark and quark there?
Yes.
The same basic. QC decontamination.
QC decontamination of a pure E plus E minus.
Pure E plus.
See, on that part, it was E plus E minus and it was photons. So there is no strong interaction content. And that was actually the real sort of surprise. And that's where this was known that there is a lot of photons that are emitted when electron and positron bunches of high intensity collide. So some kind of said, what can they do? They can only produce some lepton pairs. And we know how to sweep them out of the detector.
Okay, that's the clip I wanted to show you. Thank you very much.
This slide, these people definitely interesting and motivating. Any questions?
Comments welcome from anyone who wants to comment on any of these events or stories. Yes. Yeah, of course. So in fact, Satish Joglekar, who joined IIT Kanpur, is one of the people who came back from Stony Brook. I guess, did he come back before Rohini? Satni was senior to us. Okay. So Joglekar, Mustansir Barma, Rohini were sort of 3 to 5 years senior. I see. Then Mustansir, then Rohini. But I can't hold Rohini responsible for them coming back. But after her, definitely, I think we did feel some sense that there was hope for us if we came back. Okay, thanks. I guess we have a tea break.